So comparing this to Hollywood, right? Like Hollywood, of course, has been giving us a lot of shit that we're supposed to eat and pretend it's cake. And a lot of that, it comes from a genuine desire. I think my theory, I'd love to know what Cameron would say about this. My theory is that Hollywood has a long history of being genuinely very racist, very sexist, and I think the people in power feel guilty about that. And the way that the reaction has been to just like, okay, let's just really make it clear that we're super cool with all kinds of people, and just like giving it just, and it's like, but they're going out of their way. It's like, thou dost protest too much kind of a situation. And, it's like, why are you working so hard to give us like these old characters, and then just, let's just turn this into a black lesbian female character, even though before it was none of those things. It's like, why are you doing that? And it's so annoying because it's like, just, that's not storytelling motivated, right?
Right.
A prime recent example that I found really stupid, just asinine, was the Rings of Power, where it was just like, this is literally a European-based fantasy world. And there are other, like, you can explore other aspects of this world that are not based in Europe. And so if you wanted to bring in a more diverse cast, that would be the way to do it within the rules of the world. But instead, what we're going to do is we're just going to arbitrarily, in a way that makes no sense within the world, just take out one random character from each of these races that are otherwise all white and make them black. Not South Indian or Korean, or just black. And it's just like, what?
Well,
like,
that's representation as the supreme value.
Yes, but that's instead of storytelling as a supreme value, right?
Correct.
Right.
Because way before all of this, the modern era of diversity and inclusion and all that hit, as a storyteller, and you can see it in comic books, it's interesting to include different characters and to shake it up and to have different types of characters from different races. Like, storytellers naturally move into that on some level, especially if you're telling a recurring story, like in a comic book run or something like that.
Yeah.
So it helps storytelling on its own. You don't need to be prompted to do it. Certainly some stories, maybe they're predominantly one way or another. I'm sure I can go to China right now and watch 90% of their movies, and they're going to be mostly Chinese people. That doesn't mean that these are wrong.
Makes sense.
Right. It doesn't mean that these are bad stories because there's not enough white guys in it. Mm-hmm. So, I've always been like, let the storyteller do it and let the public decide. Don't.
But more importantly, let storytelling be the key, because there are very, very valid critiques to be made. Obviously, like I said, a lot of Hollywood's history is genuine. I mean, there's genuinely times where it's like the term whitewashing is absolutely applicable. It's like, this was a historical character that did not look like a Western European, but it does because that's what we're going to do, because we prefer, a certain, especially in the 1950s, a lot of those movies is like, okay. So that's genuinely been part of history. So there's something to critique, especially like there are certain types of situations where, let's say you have a story that is set, let's say it's a science fiction story set in the future. And you have, I'm just making something up right now, but let's say you have you've got a bunch of characters on a spaceship and they're from around the world. In universe, he's gone. In universe, it would make sense for that cast of characters to be diverse. If they're like 90% white, that would be weird, right? Like, that would be weird. That would feel kind of racist. It's like, why is it only these white people that are here? Like, so like there are times when it's like you would want a story to be reversed because it makes sense in universe.
Right.
So this Arcane is a fantastic example of that being done, where it's a super diverse cast and it makes sense in universe because it's set in a multicultural city. Right? Yeah. It's set in a multicultural city, and there's no particular reason why this city needs to have like patriarchy. There's no particular reason for it to have that, so they just don't have it. There's no particular reason why it needs to be like deeply homophobic, so it isn't that either. So you have people that are just openly gay. They don't even need a label for it. You have people that are men and women that are doing all sorts of different roles in society. And people that look all sorts of different ways because they're from all parts of this world. Makes sense. And it's fantastic. Well, that is what it should look like. If you're going to have a diverse cast, it should be because this is the story that you're telling, right?
Totally. I feel like it's the rule of silence. Like, the best way to portray it is to not talk about it, not bring it up, show us. And Arcane does that. You meet Vi, who's tough as nails, beats up a guy, in the early, in episode 1. The head of the captain of the enforcers is a woman. You see the council has women. None of them stand up and make I fought against, now I'm on there's no, they just were dealing with in-world problems together.
Right. And if you wanted to tell a story that was like sexist or something, then it could make sense to do that. But that wasn't this world. Right.
And that will come up at times, but it should be part of the story and it should be natural. I'm writing a story right now where some of this stuff does come up naturally. It's almost impossible to avoid it. And so I trust that readers will know that. I'm not too worried about it. But Arcane just shows. It doesn't tell, it just shows. And they also make the effort to be authentic with their diversity, with their representation. It's all very authentic and it comes across as authentic. And for me, the key is the hierarchy of values. Diversity is important. Representation is important. Right. But story always has to be at the top. And I think that good storytellers have to have the guts to keep that hierarchy there. That doesn't mean that representation is bad or diversity is bad, that you shouldn't do it. Obviously you should. Just keep it in its place along the spectrum. And I think a good storyteller will do that. And I think we all benefit when the storyteller keeps that in mind.
Yeah. And so just quick check. Heath, is everything still good? I saw you come in and out.
Well, yeah, I was mentioning in the chat that I was frozen, so I refreshed myself. So
okay.
Hopefully I'm here.
You haven't missed anything that you wouldn't already have.
No. I was listening to the whole thing.
Okay, that's good. What was I going to say? Oh, because on the level of representation being important, like this is an example. Like one of the reasons why I think I like Vi so much is I genuinely consider her to be like representation, to an archetype that I say I would relate to. And it's very meaningful and exciting because that particular archetype I don't encounter that often. And it's one of those things that like anyone that's experienced that, anyone, whatever it is, you have some minority trait you don't usually see that much. It's always very exciting when you do encounter it because you get so used to not seeing it and you're like, oh, yeah. Cool. It's kind of like, that's me kind of a feeling, kind of, sort of, not exactly. But, it's like everyone experiences like those characters that you relate to, but there's something else about not seeing something very frequently. And then you do see it, it's very cool. And I think one of the things that I just want to finish my thought here real quick. One of the things that why I think it works is I really don't think they were trying to at all. Like, I don't, I think they kind of stumbled upon that by mistake because if you also look at Vi's design in the game, it's very different. She's a lot more feminine. She's a lot more she's also more sexualized, but it's like in a specific kind of a way that doesn't really make sense. I mean, it's a video game, so video games just are fantasies. They do what they want. But like when you're saying, okay, I have this character who her main thing is she punches things, right? Like what kind of body type should she have? And so they shifted her to like physically make more sense to that type of style of fighting. And then they also shifted what kind of personality she had and what kind of backstory she has in order to bring her to become this person. And then, I don't know why they decided that, what's her name? Caitlin was the love interest, but I imagine it probably all just happened naturally. And so when you stumble upon an archetype like that, it's just a human archetype, this certain kind of masculine lesbian character that it's like that's going to just happen naturally. Sometimes when you're just writing stories, you're just going to create like any other type of archetype. And I think that's why it works and why it resonates with me personally, because I don't think they were trying to make one. They were just writing a character. And that's why it worked.
I agree. In fact, and I've asked myself similar questions, like why am I upset with this character but not that character? Like why do I think this story does a good job and this story does a bad job? Like what is the difference? And one of my answers was the hero fights for all of us. So when one hero is like, I'm fighting the patriarchy, for example, and let's just say that's just the one. Well, she fights for women. She doesn't fight for me. So it's harder for me to get that excited about it. And by the way, my character's doing that. So I still have to make sure that I'm paying attention to her and her arc correctly to make sure that doesn't come across as.
So she has to be more than just that. Is that
right?
What you're saying?
Well, or that it's appropriate given the situation that she's in. Because there are stories about women who are dealing with a male-dominated situation. It's still a good story because it's specific to that story.
Right.
But Vi, she fights for all of us. That's the sense you get the whole time. Like she's not just picking out one demographic group or one type of identity group or whatever you want to call it, and saying, this is the one person or the one group I fight for. The rest of y'all are the problem. No, she's fighting for all of Zahn. She's still trying to deal with Piltover. She's got her, Caitlin is from Piltover. So, she's like the ultimate upper class, like princess, in a sense. So what I like about Vi is that she is universal. It doesn't matter her gender. It doesn't matter anything else. She's fighting for all of us. And I think that's a vital element that's missing from a lot of modern heroes or heroines.
And I think the fact that I have not seen a single, like even the kind of people that will go out of their way to complain a lot about, the woke agenda. I'm using these big air quotes because I think it's a cringy phrase, but anyway, that, you have these movies and shows where sometimes there are some people out there where their critiques, I'm like, I can't tell if they're really critiquing the fact that it had this character, if they, there are some people where it feels like it is a little misogynistic or a little bit homophobic.
Oh, sure.
There are people out there where it's like on that edge. Even people like that, I haven't seen anyone like that critiquing or being bothered by Arcane. And I think that speaks to the fact that in 99% of cases, when people react to this kind of diversity that Hollywood often gives, it's not about the diversity. It's that it doesn't feel authentic. It's that people just want good stories. And if you give them good stories and they're super diverse, they're like, oh, okay. Like no one cares.
Right.
and I get passionate about this. I get worked up about it because I find it to be so counterproductive to, if you're trying to say that you want, to make the world better for, whatever you want, more representation, you want to help with issues like with, tension, with racial tension, tension with feminism and anti-feminism, all these issues that, we're still dealing with in our society. If your response to that is that you want to have stories that have characters from different perspectives that people aren't used to experiencing, which I do think actually does help. That's a large part of why our society shifted so quickly to be accepting homosexuality, was literally because of storytelling. It has to be motivated by storytelling. And when it isn't, it annoys people and it has the opposite effect. It makes them more sexist, it makes them more homophobic, makes them more racist instead of less. And should they react that way? No, people shouldn't react that way. People should be intelligent enough to recognize it's a movie and that shouldn't affect how you see real people. But it still has that effect. And so I really think that as storytellers, especially filmmakers, like you have to have a responsibility for this kind of a thing. And if that's what you claim to actually care about, you need to act the fuck like you care about it and actually do a good job and tell a good story. Because if you don't, you're working against yourself. And that's annoying. So stop it.
Well, amen to that. Yeah, I agree. And I actually think that because they've done such a poor job, it's going to spawn a counter movement where storytelling.
It already has.
It has. I agree. It's already started. Storytelling is going to be back front and center, and we're going to get more Arcanes and stories like Arcane.
Yes. I really hope that we are. Arcane is a great example of what we need more of and what people want more of.